All right, welcome back to BNFM, the podcast for the people of Bottleless Nation. I'm Kylie, and today's episode is a little bit different. We're shifting our focus from the company side to the heart of what we do beyond just the business. I'm joined today by Samantha Veach, the director of Bottleless Nation Charitable Foundation, or BNCF for short, and the president of the board for BNCF. The foundation was started back in July of 2023 with one goal: to leave it better than we found it. And by it, we mean our planet. The BNCF supports organizations and initiatives focused on reducing plastic waste, environmental cleanup, and getting safe, clean water to communities in need around the world. In today's episode, Sam is going to walk us through everything happening with the foundation right now, our recent Earth Day cleanup and the impact that our team made, our partnerships with Charity Water and 5 Gyres, and what's on the horizon for the foundation. Let's dive in. Sam, welcome to BNFM.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, all the acronyms, BNFM, BNCF.
Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. To begin, I always like to start with a little bit of background. So if you could give us a little bit of your background, how you came here to be the director of BNCF, and just give people a little insight into a little bit about you.
Hi, I am Sam Veach. I started here actually in October of 2023 when I was approached by Rick when they were in need of a director of marketing for Bottleless Nation. I was at the time working at Newfields, or the Indianapolis Museum of Art, and their media team there, working closely with their marketing team. So very familiar with the nonprofit world. And the Charitable Foundation, like you said in the beginning, was established just a few months before I started. So other than Rick, nobody was really leading the charge for it. And I saw an opportunity for our team to give back in a really big way through the Charitable Foundation. And since I felt so strongly about it, I followed that and felt it was my responsibility to make it happen. They did the first step for me of forming the foundation and also the board. And I just wanted to see it through and play my part to make it happen. I always believe that there's something more that we can do, not just as individuals, but especially as a corporation, more time or money or resources that we can be giving. And it's this kind of work that, really gives me faith in humanity, to be honest. So I just found it super motivating, and I wanted to make sure that we were doing our part as an organization and making it happen through the BNCF.
Yeah, definitely. And you talked about how the foundation has changed. So can you walk us through how that has changed over time? It started as just Rick's idea and something that he wanted to spearhead. And then what has it kind of turned into?
Yeah. So essentially that, like you just said, it started as just like this little nugget of an idea, something that we knew that we needed to do and that we really wanted to do as an organization. Because before that, we were Artesian, Office H2O, Pure Water Partners, and OmniFlow. And each organization was kind of giving back in their own independent ways. For example, Office H2O always donated to St. Jude's every year, which is an amazing organization, of course, but it didn't align with the work that we were doing. And so that's where Rick wanted to make the foundation, because it would allow us to create something that made sense, that, the mission of that you touched on earlier of plastic reduction and cleanup waste and cleanup, and then also the providing clean water, it kind of runs parallel to what we do as a business. And so it just makes sense. So over time, we've moved away from those individual approaches to charitable work and have now formed us all, of course, under Bottleless Nation and under the Bottleless Nation Charitable Foundation, so that we're all giving in a way that makes sense and is easy for us to talk about.
Yeah. And can you explain to people how they are connected in the way that we do give back?
Yeah. So you mean like how we donate?
Yeah.
So previously, when it was Artesian, Office H2O, OmniFlow, Pure Water Partners, each team would give back a little bit of their profits each year. So Pure Water Partners was doing 1% of their installation, or no. Pure Water Partners was doing 1% of their late fees. Artesian and Office H2O were doing 10% of their installation fees. So now it's just Bottleless Nation, or the field, is doing 10% of their installation fees. And then Pure Water Partners is still doing the 1% of the late fees.
Nice. Yeah, and so it's kind of one of those things where I've seen this with other organizations. Well, specifically with like gyms, you miss a class and they charge you a late fee, and they'll give that money back to like a local organization. I love the connection of, I don't know, giving it to someone in need. And I
Yeah.
don't know. I think that it's when it ties to what we do as a business, it's really fun to see the bigger impact you can have. And it's like when you talk
Yeah.
about 1% doesn't seem like very much, but then compounded over time, you're like, oh, actually, like
Yeah.
this is making a huge difference for people. And I'm excited to dive into that deeper. But I feel like when you say 1%, it doesn't seem like a lot,
Right.
but it
But over a
is.
year,
Yeah.
that 1% and that 10%, like we did in 2025, led to $100,000, So it's, yeah, it creates a huge impact at the end of the day. And that's why and if anytime I hear like, oh, we're going to waive the late fee or we're going to waive the installation fee, I'm like, no, don't do that. That's
Yeah.
where, that's where we're getting these funds. I think it also, I don't know if we communicate this out to our customers whenever there is an installation fee or a late fee, but I think it helps soften the blow of a fee like that. Of,
Hmm.
well, hey, we have to tack on this fee, or there's an installation fee for us putting this equipment in. But hey, don't fret. The installation fee actually goes to our charitable foundation, and this is what that does. So actually, that's a good note. I should make a note. Make sure that's something that our sales team is talking to their customers about.
Note to add it to our marketing materials for sure.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
really, now that I think about it, it isn't
No,
shown
we don't really.
anywhere.
Yeah,
Maybe verbally, I guess, is
I think
where how
it's
they're sharing with them.
yeah, and it's based on maybe we don't want to remind them of the fee. That's probably
Yeah.
why we haven't really touched it in the past, but it's definitely worth mentioning to them when they do have one. So
Yeah, that is good to know. Um, and most recently, Earth Day was last week. And can you explain a little bit to everyone? And obviously, if you work for Bottleless Nation, you hopefully know that this happened because you participated. But for people who may not, know about it, can you tell us a little bit about what we do for Earth Day and how we give back?
yeah, so to give a bit of background too on kind of where this started, we were giving back to charities financially, but we felt
Hmm.
like there was more that we could do as an organization on a community or like a market level. And so we came up with this Earth Day cleanup. And what we do is we have each market go out and select a spot. Sometimes they work with their local community or their local government to receive a tip on, hey, we really need this area cleaned up. Sometimes it's just in their local business park, which is great. And we take a half a day and we feed everybody lunch and then we send them out to clean up. And the adverse effect that we had to it, one that we didn't really expect, is that it's really become a great team bonding experience that anytime people report back on how the day went, it makes me feel just all nice and warm and fuzzy on the inside, because they're really taking it as an opportunity to get out in their community together. And like, how do you feel bad doing that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Do you have any numbers to share with us of some of the impacts that we have from this year? I know we haven't collected all of the data yet, but if you could share
yes.
some of them, just so I think that, again, talking about the 1%, you know, we don't just have one location, we have locations across the country. So this is really awesome to see it happen nationwide.
Yeah, yeah. So this year we had 25 locations participate, which is about the same I think we had last year. It's everybody. But what was fun about this year is that even markets like Salt Lake's only been open for a couple months, they still
Hmm.
got out there. There were two of them, but they still got out there and they did it. I think they collected maybe 8 bags. So,
Oh,
which is
wow.
great. Yeah, very impressive. Really happy that they have a lot to do because it's a new market, but they still took the time to participate in Earth Day, which we love. We also had markets, unfortunately, like Seattle and Pure Water Partners, that this was the first year that not every single market had a beautiful sunshiny day. They had quite a bit of rain, but they still went out and did it, and they looked soaked in their photos, and people were losing boots and mud and everything. But I was like, you still did it. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
So yeah, 25 markets. And then it's about 285 participants. So, we can't make this a mandatory thing, but the fact that that many people still said, yeah, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I want to do it, just shows how passionate our team is about it. And we love that. In total, how we measure our impact on Earth Day is by number of bags of trash collected.
Hmm.
So this year, we're still waiting on a couple markets to report it back in, but as of now, we have roughly 382 of those big, like 55-gallon bag trash bags. We had that much trash collected. Of those 382, we had some standout markets. We do it every year. Indy always pulls a lot, but they also have the most people power at headquarters, and we're pulling from OmniFlow, and we have, a ton of folks here at headquarters. So it's a little star next to it, but it still counts.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at it maybe from like a bags per person perspective, so this year's winning market, because we always have a winning market, was Colorado Springs. They had the most bags per person amount, which I believe ended up being 4. So in Phoenix, though, was a really close second. They also are a pretty large market, and they have a lot of participants, but they had 28 bags total, and also I think they had traffic cones and like 8 tires or something. Wherever they went, really needed their efforts this year.
Yeah.
So 25 markets, 285 participants, 382 bags. So it's kind of
That's
our round.
Impressive.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Well, I didn't record my single bag. It wasn't a 55-gallon bag, but
I didn't put yours in here too. 383 total bags.
Yeah, it's actually over here, since we're by the water, there's always things like, coming up on the bay. So it's like a really lucrative, as far as trash goes, place to pick up. So I'm sure that, in Indy right along there where you guys pick up, people are always, throwing trash over there, unfortunately. So
right off I-69,
we're there,
and the city does not care. So we do.
Yeah. We're there to pick it up. So that's good. Yeah, that's really fun. I think that it's also, you were talking about the team bonding. It's also really fun because the year that I was in Indy, like you just get to like talk with people, and like it's such a good way to, it's easy to talk while you're picking up trash and make it fun. And I feel like we've been lucky with some good weather, like you said. So that's always nice too.
And I mean, across most markets, but especially Indy, all 3 years that we've done this, we've had amazing weather. Yeah, speaking to that kind of getting out there, talking to people, like I said, it's a great bonding experience, but also it's really hard to have a bad day of work doing that, in my opinion, because it's not glamorous work. In fact, it can be really disgusting. Some of the stuff that they've picked off of I-69, I was talking to Trent Jones, and I asked him, I was like, how much? Some stuff that we've picked up in years past. He's like, well, I had 2 diapers this year. I was like, oh, that's just so gross. Like, you don't know how long they've been out there. It's just so gross.
Yeah.
But the satisfaction that you get from like seeing that spot that you're cleaning up, the before and all the debris and all the trash, and then the after, it's just instant satisfaction for me. And then the whole time you're doing it, you have people driving by that are like, oh my gosh, thank you guys so much. This is so amazing. This has been such a problem area. And this is something that we hear from all the markets that they've had, or people who work at those parks. They're like, this made such an impact. Thank you guys so much. I just think it's, it's hard to have a bad day's work when you're getting all that praise and doing something so great.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a feel good for sure. Yeah. So that's awesome. Well, one of the things I also want to transition into is something that we mentioned in the beginning was our partnerships. And with our partnerships, that's something that has changed over time. And I'd love if you could give us some backstory and just insight into the board and picking those partnerships, and just how that happens, and how our work with them, kind of like how we work together, and what a partnership really means, because it is different depending on the entity that we're working with too. So if you could give us a little bit on that would be great.
Yeah. So how we started this, and this is kind of the process that we've been doing for the last 3 years. It starts with a lot of research. So, I mean, like weeks of research. And we start by taking suggestions first, honestly, from the board, and as well as team members who are really motivated and care deeply about the Charitable Foundation and want to see us give back in big ways. We'll take suggestions from them on different missions or organizations or initiatives that align with our mission. And then I do just a complete dive on those companies, as well as all the others that I find throughout the research that I'm doing. And I just vet each of them, and then we take them to the board for a vote. I think the first year, I don't remember how many I originally started with, but I ended up taking, I think, 14 organizations to the board for a review.
Oh, wow.
And then we just kind of narrowed those down and then left it to a vote for, for those 2 prongs of the mission of plastic pollution or plastic reduction and waste and cleanup. And then also the providing safe, clean water side. We, had multiple that we were choosing from, and the ones that we landed on are the ones that won. But I asked myself a lot of questions as I'm going through and vetting them. excuse me, of course, first of all, does their work align with our mission? This is kind of the whole point,
Yeah.
the whole reason that the Charitable Foundation was created in the first place. But also, does this partnership make sense, not only internally, but externally? People looking at the company and seeing who we're supporting or who we're partnering with. Does that make sense? What percentage of our funds are going directly to these projects? How much of it is going to the administrative costs, if any of it? And then, can they provide a transparent background of how those funds are being applied? Are they listed on any of those watchdog sites? Like, I used a lot of those sites whenever I first started researching and vetting these organizations. Like Charity Navigator is a really good one. They give them a star rating and like reviews and reports and all of that. Are they an established 501c3? We have to donate to 501c3s. Are they in good standing? Do they have any like dirty history that we need to know of? Just things like that. I have a whole list that I go through each time, but just to make sure that we're answering all the questions, and I can answer all the questions that the board might have when presenting these charities to them. So
Definitely.
when we first started, though, like I said, we brought 14 to them and we brought it down to a vote. And the first two that we landed on were Charity Water, who we've partnered with every year since. They're just such an amazing organization. And then we started with Keep America Beautiful because of their 152 pickup initiative that they had. That was part of a motivator for our Earth Day. And then the next year we wanted to switch it up. So we did more research, went back to the drawing board, decided that Charity Water was worth sticking with. And then that's how we found Five Gyres as well. And now we're in our third year of donating Charity Water, second year of partnering with Five Gyres.
Nice. I love that. Yeah. And so with Five Gyres, I think that, well, I guess since you started with Charity Water, we can start there. But with Charity Water, can you explain a little bit more about what their mission is and exactly what they're doing and giving back, and give us a little bit of information on what we've been able to provide through our support of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So Charity Water is a global nonprofit. They were founded in 2006. This is like my favorite thing about them. They were founded by a club promoter in New York. And their goal was, to end the world water crisis, and to do so by bringing clean and safe water to communities and people around the world. So they saw that staggering scale of the problem. I have some numbers because I didn't want to misquote. So 703 million people in the world live without clean water. And a majority of those live in these rural, isolated areas where they have to spend hours every day just to walk to a pretty not so great river of a water source. And it just throws off the whole community. So they decided that they wanted to do something about it. And because they believe, and this is part of their slogan, is that clean water is a right and it should not be a privilege. But unfortunately, it is in a lot of places at the moment. So yeah, that's kind of their mission. What we loved about Charity Water and why we ended up picking them was multiple reasons. For one, they have kind of, as I was saying about, where our funds are going and the transparency, they just checked so many boxes for us as an organization to know that our funds were going to be used responsibly. So they have a 100% model, which means that 100% of the funds that we give them go directly into the water projects that we selected. So they receive private donations to cover all their administrative costs. So that way all the public funds that they receive can go directly to those water projects. We were like, okay, perfect, great, check, know exactly how that's going. And then the transparency behind that, like I said, was also really important to us because they're so good at tracking every dollar and how it's spent and giving us that. So there isn't any like, all right, we're donating and we're hoping that this is going to be used effectively. We don't really know. We don't have that problem. We receive quarterly, annually updates from them. And then at the end of a project, so each project runs for 2 years. And at the end of a project, you receive photos and GPS coordinates. Like you receive this nice little webpage with all the information of your project. And so you can see just exactly how that impact was made and the difference that you've made. And then the other thing that we loved about them was like their scale and their level of impact. So it was just so impressive to me, the work that they've done within 20 years where they've raised over $1 billion. They have helped over 20 million people in 29 countries with over 171,000 water projects. So now we get to say that we're a part of that legacy, which is great. And then the last thing that I was really concerned of with some of these charities is, do they just build it and leave? Is that going to fail? Like what's the fail safe here to make sure that things work out in the end? So Charity Water doesn't do that. They are really good at staying involved with the community members from the very start. And they have people buy in as stakeholders of the project, and they train them on how to manage it. And they have these sensors that track the water flow and any maintenance issues. And they're just really good at setting it up to be sustainable and successful for years to come. So
That's very cool. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think I even knew a lot of the aftercare, because you imagine,
Yes.
like, you set it up. I mean, some things are going to happen, and that's really, really important. So that's cool. I love that. And then, so like you said, there's two prongs. So we have the clean water, which is a part of what we want to give back to. So with Charity Water, that's what they're handling for us. And then do you want to share any specifics about like the project that we helped with?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So like we said, this is our third year with them. So we have technically 4 projects under our belt. One of them is officially complete because we're 2 years in. For our first projects in Mozambique, we funded 2 water pumps with hand wells in 2 different regions of Mozambique. So those types of solutions, they have multiple types of solutions, and it all just depends on the type of terrain and the community on which one they choose. But for these, they're the most cost effective and also the most successful and easy to maintain. So that's what made sense in those regions. But how that process works, like on the ground from start to finish, is, the funds are transferred to the partner in the region. They do these geophysical studies and different surveys just to completely identify the perfect drilling site for this. And then groundwater is brought to the surface and plans are put in place, materials are purchased, the construction's built, all of that. And then, like we said, once it's finished, they maintain it and make sure that it lasts. But what's cool about the newer projects that we have from 2025 Rwanda and the 2026 Bangladesh projects is there's an added layer of school sanitization, or no, sanitization is our word, school sanitation facilities there. So those projects go well beyond drinking water. They really transform what a school day looks like for those children who previously either had no clean water or access to proper sanitization. Oh my gosh, I did it again. Proper sanitation on campus. So what's really cool about that is the long-term impact that those have on their communities. So Charity Water was seeing, that lack of clean water was really a root problem for a lot of the different crises that these communities were facing. Like I said, people, but it was often women and children, would have to spend hours every day walking to their water source to get water, to then bring it back. And so this was keeping parents from working, which was keeping them from making money for their families. This was keeping kids out of schools, which was obviously not great. And the water that they were transporting back often had diseases that was making their entire families sick. So there's just no winning. And so these water sources help eliminate those issues and allow these communities to thrive. But these comprehensive facilities that are included in the projects for Rwanda and Bangladesh, they include latrines and hand washing stations. So this is in addition to that water point. And the schools also the partners in the schools, also provide hygiene and sanitation training to the students, which to us just like, yeah, of course. But to them, that's not a common thing. And then on top of that, of course, the next layer of menstrual hygiene management training as well. So that last piece is super important because, especially for girls, without those private clean sanitation facilities, a lot of them would just stop attending school altogether because they needed to stay home during their cycles, and then they would just stop going altogether. So it really addressed that problem. It's not talked about as much as it should be, of girls falling out of the education system in these regions. So for these communities, but especially for women and children, it changed everything.
Yeah.
It's
wow.
Whenever we were given the option of, hey, you can do another hand pump or you can do this water point and school sanitation project, we were like, yes, let's do that. That's great. So yeah, it's really cool.
That is really, really cool. I guess I wasn't privy to that information either. So I'm like learning real time. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And I think that one of the things, like, you don't imagine how it might impact someone's daily life and how
Right.
different it must be, because we, have, like you said, the privilege of going to a tap and turning it on and having fresh
Right.
water at any moment. So yeah, that's so important.
Yeah. Even if our
Do you
TDS isn't great, it's still
yeah, you're like, we have it, it's
it's still
better
such
than
a privilege.
most.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
And then do you want to shift into Five Gyres? Five Gyres is a newer
Yeah.
partnership for us.
Yeah.
This hits the other side of the two prong, right? So this is more about the plastic pollution and microplastics and some of those issues that we also see working in water. So yeah, can you give us a little bit of background on Five Gyres, and
Yeah.
then why we picked them as a partner, and what they're doing to give back?
Yeah. So Five Gyres, like we said, we have to donate to these 501c3s nonprofits. So they're another one, and their focus on is reducing plastic pollution and empowering action against plastic pollution through science, advocacy, and community engagement. That's kind of like their three-prong approach. So operating on those three levels, the research part of it, or like the scientific research part of it, they have a team of scientists on their staff that's dedicated to researching all of these specific plastic pollution related projects and issues that they're tackling. And then they dive into the advocacy part of it, because without data, environmental advocacy is really just an opinion to some people. And
Mm-hmm.
so giving it that evidence is what allows them to actually change laws and really make a difference. So you
Yeah.
can't do one without the other. My favorite example of like one of their big success stories is in 2012. They were the first to discover that those little microbeads that would be found in personal care products like toothpaste, which is like so gross to think about now, but
Or
toothpaste,
the face washes, right? Had
exactly.
them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exfoliating face washes that we were all using as teenagers, just scrubbing plastic into our face. Those were polluting waterways. And so they took that information, did, of course, a ton of research on it, and they used it to forge a coalition that convinced companies like Procter and Gamble and Johnson and L'Oreal to stop putting them in their products. And this eventually led to a total federal ban on those being used in products. And Five Gyres
Wow.
are the ones that did that. They're the ones who pushed for it and really got it started. And then the community action, that's them relying on folks like us to collect information for them, because they're actually a pretty small team, but they're very mighty, but they need us. And so they use different tools like the Trash Blitz app, which we didn't use this year, but we 100% will be doing next year. But it's a perfect example of, gathering data from people outside the organization who really care and want to make a difference to inform that next round of policy change. So
What does the app do that would be beneficial to them?
yeah, so the Trash Blitz app, it's really cool, but it makes the project tedious. Not that it's not worth it. It's just another layer that you have to do. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
out hiking or if you're out on the beaches of Corpus Christi and you're collecting trash, what you do is it's free, anyone can use it. You get the Trash Blitz app and you document the trash that you're picking up. So you can document it by type of trash, or you can document it
Mm,
by brand. So if you're picking up a Coke bottle, you take a photo of it and you fill out the information for it. And then they take that information, turn it into real data, and then they use that to really hold these companies accountable on the waste that they're creating and try and curb it or create policies that prevent them from creating as much waste. So the
yeah.
information or the excuse no longer falls on the user at that point. It falls on the corporation themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really cool.
Well, and I know, like, for example, a big one here, there's lots of styrofoam, cups,
Yes.
lots of
Yeah.
styrofoam cups that come up. And where we are specifically, there's not a ton of like bans of what you can use. I know it was interesting to me. I went to Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, like Outer Banks area. And when you go to their
Mhm.
grocery stores, they have like plastic bans. Like
Yeah.
they don't offer plastic bags to use. And then if you want a bag, you have to pay for it. And
Right.
it's still, but it's not plastic. So I
Yeah.
think it's, probably, I imagine with data like that, like, oh, we're finding this and this and this in this area. Okay, well, we're not going to allow people to even, use plastic bags anymore,
Right.
because they don't want their brand rolling up on the beaches,
Yeah.
I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And like cigarette butts, that's another big one that they
Oh,
get
yeah.
documented a lot on, the trash that people are picking up. And Yeah, that's exactly the work that it informs.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about weird stuff that I found. Toothbrush, like plastic toothbrushes.
Yeah,
I
great.
found one of those when I was searching, which is like, gross. But you think about it, like those, I mean, they're not breaking down anytime soon.
No,
So
definitely not.
yeah,
And those
yeah, that
bristles, like, you know, and the whole thing with five gyres is we're all a part of this cycle, right? So we're the ones who we're making the plastic go into these waterways that are then going into the ocean, and then the fish are ingesting it, and then we're eating the fish, and it's just this vicious cycle. So what's
hmm
so great about them is that and with with the trash, or with the Trash Blitz app, is like they're not at the, how do I want to phrase this? We're downstream cleaning up the mess, but they're
hmm
upstream saying, why is this mess here to begin with? Where is this plastic coming from? How do we stop it from coming?
right.
So it's not that the cleanup's not important. It is crucial because we're going to have this problem for a long time, but they're trying to make that less of a problem.
Yeah.
So it's really, the work that they do is so important.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. And so one of the things that we did was contributed. I have $50,000
Hmm.
to microplastics research, and one of the things is their floating wetlands initiative. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So last year we donated 30 grand to Five Gyres. This is what kicked off our partnership with them.
Okay.
And that went directly into funding this floating wetland project that you're talking about.
Okay.
So
Cool.
what really kickstarted that was microplastics are among, of course, as we know from what the work that we do, they're the most difficult pollutants on Earth to deal with. So they're small enough that they escape through wastewater treatment plants, and then they enter, back into these waterways and go to the ocean. And like I said, we're just back into that vicious cycle because once they're in a waterway, it's so difficult to get them out. But the wetlands then that we funded, that they created, they're made of Spartina alterniflora plugs. So those are just like different types of plants that are planted into a coconut coir mesh. And that's all on top of the securely tethered mycelium based raft. So if anyone is curious, we do have in like previous posts and in the previous newsletters, we have diagrams of these, but
hmm
the point of them really is that, they're promoting biodiversity while also capturing these pollutants at the exact same time. So they did them on a pretty small scale, of course, but the end goal is to hopefully be able to recreate them on a larger scale and
hmm
inform future solutions to protect waterways nationwide, all with the goal of course, of preserving our marine ecosystems, because that's what's being attacked the most from these microplastics.
Yeah. And with these wetlands that they're building, are they in specific areas or like targeting certain things, or is it just kind of testing to figure out, how much they're capturing and things, or I guess is what's the thought behind that?
Yeah, so I don't know where they've gone with this since testing them last summer, but the ones that we
hmm
had, helped fund three of these
Okay.
wetlands that were all placed just not too far from each other, and their goal was to catch storm runoff. And this was is a river on the East Coast, like just south of Boston. But they were placed in three different spots along that river, and yeah, they were just catching the storm water runoff and all the pollutants.
Cool to see and like align with other people, and you're like, oh, I didn't even know that Five Jars was out there. And so it's so cool to
Right?
see the work that they're doing and the impact that they're having. Like, I don't know, I just think that that's such a cool thing for us to be able to partner with and support, because obviously it's really important. And out here at the beach, the microplastics are so much more obvious because they're
Yeah.
washing up, and then you can see them scattered, like, I don't know, like almost like a glitter or
Yeah.
sprinkles or something. I mean, it's
Yeah.
everywhere, and you think
But like less
that
fun
it's
glitter and
yeah,
sprinkles.
yeah, like the worst kind,
Yeah, like
you
the worst
know,
kind of sprinkles.
that
But I get what
fish
you
are
mean.
eating. Yeah, but they're
Yeah.
just scattered everywhere, and you don't
Mhm.
necessarily see it, and then you're like, oh, little specks of color, and it's broken
Right.
down. I mean, it makes it impossible to even almost like pick them up because
Right. Exactly.
they're like small enough, but not too small that they're not making an
Right.
impact. So
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit more about, we have A lot of fun things on the horizon for your role here with us. So can you tell us a little bit more about where the foundation is headed and what people, especially a part of Bottleless Nation, have to look forward to, and that they could share with friends and family to help support our initiative too?
Yeah. So we actually have a couple ideas that we were just discussing at our last board meeting. Now, wanted to preface that by saying that these are very much in like the infancy stage for each of them. We're really just at the brainstorming part of it. There's going to be a
Yeah.
lot of details, a lot of checks and balances, a lot of things that'll have to go into these ideas. But I think overall they can really impact us in a major way, and a way that we kind of need. We're 3 years in now. So it's like, okay, we're established in some ways. Let's maybe
Mm-hmm.
refresh and take a step back and see like what's working, what we can be doing more, or what we can be better at. And then let's run with it. So a couple ideas that we've had. One is a partnership program for dealers within our industry. So we've had dealers reach out to us, and they maybe just don't have the time or the motivation, or they don't really know how to give back. And they see
Mm-hmm.
the Bottleless Nation Charitable Foundation. They're like, well, I'll just donate to them. They're doing things and supporting causes that make sense for my business as well. And we've had a few reach out, and we just didn't have a way for them to, to tell them, yes, please, we'll take your donation. So coming up with a partnership program for them, and, are there different layers? What does that look like? Or different tiers, different levels? That's something that we're hopefully going to be rolling out. Same with customer level giving. So, a lot of customers are on our site, and it's to, maybe request service or to look up a certain piece of equipment or something like that. And the charitable foundation is of course on the site, but if their company agrees to be a customer of ours, maybe they don't know how we're giving back. And that's, of course we should be communicating, like we said, with the installation fees and the late fees. But let's say
Yeah.
they want to do more. We don't have a way for customers to give on an individual level. And there's so many benefits to giving them that opportunity. One being, of course, like they're more invested and like maybe more trusting of us and believe in our mission and the work that we do. Having some sort of customer, it can be as small as like $1 a month. Like we don't really know
Yeah.
what it looks like yet, but you get 1,000 customers to sign up, and then great, there's more at the end of the day that we get to give to, charities or other funds at the end of the year. So that's another one. The next one I'm calling the Ronald McDonald Roundup. So giving customers the opportunity to round up their bill, their annual, monthly, quarterly, whatever it might be, or add more to it of like, hey, do you want to add an additional $5 onto your payment? It goes directly to the charitable foundation. This is what it does. And then, we give them reports. We send our newsletter out to all of our customers because in some way, shape, or form, they are contributing to the charitable foundation through
Mm-hmm.
those late fees. So sending them reports, and again, keeping them invested in, yeah, just trusting of what we're doing and that their money's going to a good cause. And then another idea that we've had is cooler giveaways. So this is another way that we can give back on a community level or on like a market level. So giving a free cooler to an underserved school or a youth rec center or a free clinic, food pantries and food banks, any type of organization like that, giving them a cooler is as another way to give back. So, like I said, all these ideas are in their very early stages, but it's just small ways that we're thinking, okay, this is how we can expand on the charitable foundation and make a
Yeah.
bigger impact. So,
I think all of those are such great ideas, and I'm excited to see what you guys do with those. I guess two final questions. I have one a little bit
yeah.
numbers based, just so we can end on giving people an idea of what we've been able to give. And I think this is so cool because we really get to see what we've been able to contribute. And then as we add these other options for customers or individuals or whoever it might be, how much it could grow beyond that. So could you give us an idea of like what the numbers are and what we've been able to provide so far?
So, talking numbers, absolutely. We have just grown more and more every year. With our end goal is always at least $100,000 annually to be able to donate to these different charities. So, our first year, 2023, collecting to donate at the beginning of 2024, we donated a total of $63,593. And that was broken down by Pure Water Partners had 16,513 of it. Office H2O, this is when we were still two sides of the house, was 17,100 and artesian was 29,980. Then jumping to 2025, we jumped from that 63,000 to 92,000, which is amazing. Pure Water Partners had 16,100 of it. This is our last year of being the two sides of the house. So Office H2O had 29,000, so they jumped quite a bit. And then Artesian had 46,000, so they jumped quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
And then it was just a really good year for late fees. And then in 2026, this was the first time that we combined them, but technically they still collected separately and throughout 2024. So we raised a total, we finally beat that $100,000 goal that we had for ourselves, and we raised a total of $101,588, which was huge. Artesian gave over half of that with $54,000. Office H2O had $32,000 and Pure Water Partners had 15. So it was such a great year. And then, if you're keeping track of that math, we have totaled all 3 years $255,000. Or sorry, let me back it up. We have totaled from all 3 of those years $255,593 in total giving, which is just insane to think about, because in the beginning I was just like, I don't know how much we get from these late fees. I have no idea. I just know that this is the way that we receive these funds. So just to see what we were able to do on late fees alone has me so excited for the potential of everything else that we have coming down the pipe, moving forward. So really excited.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we need a backtrack of cheering or something, once you're reading the numbers, because it really is so impressive. And I think when you have companies or organizations that we're working with, like without our support, think about the impact that we wouldn't have been able to make. I think that that's huge. So I'm excited for the future of BNCF. I'm excited to do this again in a year and see how much we've grown since then. And for a final question, I always ask everyone is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Kind of what we were talking a little bit at the top about, just the passion that I have behind this nonprofit world. Follow that. I did it. It was very different at the museum, and I was really scared about the jump to corporate world because I was just like, I don't know if it's going to be for me. Mm-hmm. But then finding this little niche within it and taking this nugget and being like, okay, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. Find that and run with it. Dive all into that. So that's the advice that I would give myself.
I love that. Well, Sam, thanks for being on BNFM, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
Great. Thank you.